Ողջույն բոլորին, մենք շարունակում ենք մեր վեբինարների շարքը Շերրի Քուլվերի հետ,
Everyone, we're continuing our
Սանաչան կարքինա մենքան
Շերրի, do you hear me now? I'm on the English channel. Yes, should I say?
Կրկին ողջույն բոլորին, մենք շարունակում ենք
Hello again, everyone. We're continuing
Շերրի Քուլվերի հետ
with Sherrri Khulver. As you know, sorry. As you know, the Public Journalist Club is carrying out Meդիագրագիտություն for preschools, and as part of this project, we have organized a number of webinars with the participation of international and local experts, pedagogues, for teachers, and also preschool. And today is the second day of our webinars, which is led by Sherrri Khulver. The subject of our webinar is and mainly Sherrri will be speaking about how is it possible to prepare how to create an environment where children of preschool age can study media literacy, and also therefore we'll be very glad if you are very active here, you have active participation, raise your hands, ask your questions. So then we'll streamlining. Facebook, you can also write your questions in Facebook, and we will raise these questions as well. We have enough time. I want to remind that this program is carried out, implemented with support of the US Embassy in Armenia and continuation of our previous program where Sherrri Khulver visited Armenia and shared her experience with local pedagogues. Therefore, Sherrri is one of our international experts who is well known to our local situation, and she can present her experience based on the needs. Sherrri, we can. I think we can already start. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 2 from Philadelphia in the United States. It is a little after 7 in the morning here. I guess you can sort of see through the window behind me a little bit. The sun is just starting to come up. Today is the summer solstice. So today is the shortest day of the year, but then days start to get longer, so we'll start to get a little more sun, which is nice. I hope that you found yesterday valuable and helpful for your work, and we'll continue on that today. Just a couple of notes to reiterate that were just mentioned. One is that it's really helpful to get feedback during the webinar. So if you have questions or comments, please put those in the chat or in the question box, and we'll try to get to those during the presentation. But I will leave time at the end specifically for questions as well. I know sometimes when you're listening to a presentation, it's easy to sort of get involved in the presentation and not think of your questions till the webinar's over. Excuse me. So I want to encourage you to, as the webinar is going on, whether you keep, I actually keep a little tablet beside it so I can jot down notes. So whether you keep a little note there or you're just typing things on a phone or on your computer, to constantly be thinking about your environment and your needs and how this connects to your needs so that questions arise. And also to remember that sometimes you might listen and think you have a question and assume that no one else has that question, right? That you don't know something and everyone else knows it. And I really want to assure you that any question you have is likely to be of interest to others that are listening or watching. So please feel free to really want to encourage you to ask questions that might be about your classroom or your struggles, but are likely things that others are dealing with as well. Just a reminder for everybody to keep your microphone on mute as well, so that we can stay in our little bubble here. And I'm going to share my screen so that I can go to PowerPoint. Right. And so we're still thinking about preschoolers and how they are interacting with media and how we can help them to become media literate. I already mentioned this yesterday, so I won't go through that. And this is just a recap of what the goals are for the webinar. So just briefly, without reading through all of this, I'll say that four goals. One is to make sure that the conversation and the tips are directly related to the preschool classroom. The second bullet is to make sure that you feel really clear about the meaning of media literacy. The third is to be mindful of how the broad concept of media literacy actually is targeted to the cognitive abilities of preschoolers. And then the fourth is to share those concerns and challenges and make sure that we are that the recommendations are acknowledging concerns and challenges that you might have. And so I want you to be ready to engage and comment and discuss and play. And the reason that I have play in there is because bringing media literacy into a classroom, if you haven't done it before, I know can feel really daunting. It can feel, or you can be nervous about doing that if you haven't done it before. And I would want to encourage you to do it playfully, right? To think about the idea that, that we are all engaging with media all the time. In fact, here we are on our webinar, and that your students are engaging with media all the time. And my experience is that children of any age really love talking about media. They love learning about it. They love gaining insights about it. They love analyzing it. They just enjoy understanding media. And I think that's because they are involved with it all the time. So try not to get too worried about whether you're doing it the right way, the perfect way, and instead try, right, to just try things. And you know that as I went through the webinar yesterday, and I will do this today as well, I will give you ideas of activities and things you can bring into your classroom so that it helps you. The reason for that is to help you make the connection between the meaning of media literacy and the curriculum sort of learning goals. And what does that actually look like in a classroom? And I'm going to spend a lot of time on that today, really making that connection. So this was again, recapping some things when we think about how we use media, why we use media, when we use media, what kind of media we use. That helps us to be media smart. And that's what we really want, right? We want to be media smart, and our kids to be media smart. So to recap the definition of media literacy, we think of media literacy as an expanded concept of literacy. Literacy being the ability to read and write, right? Reading and writing is really consuming media and authoring media. And so we want children and anyone who aims to be media literate, including ourselves, to think about media literacy as the ability to consume and author media with all of the media texts available to us in the 21st century. So that is a more informal way of explaining it, and the more formalized definition is the one from the National Association for Media Literacy Education in the US, and that's the ability to access, analyze, evaluate, create, and act. And I was trying to clarify the definition of that. for many years, the definition that if we go back decades, the definition that you would have read in academic journals would mention access, analyze, evaluate, create, those four. ACT, the notion of ACT, was added a few years ago. And that's because we consume media for a purpose. It's recognizing that we don't just, even if we're watching a movie for fun, to laugh, we're doing it for that reason, right? That's our purpose in engaging with media, is to learn, to be entertained, to laugh, to cry, to spend time with family or our friends. So we do all of these things with media with a purpose, and that connection is the ACT portion, right? We are accessing, analyzing, evaluating, and creating so that we can take some action with it. So let's review the 5 key questions. We spent some time on the 5 key questions yesterday, and I think these are a strong foundational base. So it takes this definition of media literacy and sort of converts it into questions so that if we can be mindfully asking these questions all the time, it almost assures that we are acting in a media literate manner when we ask the questions. So the questions are, first, who created the message? And that's a question about authorship. The second question is about format. What creative techniques are used to attract my attention? The third is about purpose, the why. What's the purpose of this message? Why does this message exist? The fourth is about audience. How might different people understand the message differently? Recognizing that media is created for an audience. It's created for a particular person or a group of people to consume it and understand it. And content, what values, what points of view are represented or omitted from a message. So that takes into account, the images I have here are of advertising, but that would also take into account news and information and the perspective of news and information, right? Point of view of news, or a story that you read. Stories have a point of view of the author and a value message embedded in that. So it's filled with cultural references or references about what that particular author thinks are worthwhile things for you to know. So there are values and points of view. And sometimes those things are not present. So you might notice that maybe there are no women in something, or no people of color in something, or no people with a disability in something, right? It talks about representation. It might be about news and recognizing it doesn't give you a full picture of the scenario in news. So content really is digging into the actual, not who created it or why. What is the actual content? And in a media literacy classroom, you can focus on all of these points or any one of them individually. Some of the activities and the items that I talk about focus more on one than the other. But sometimes I might say you could talk about all of the 5 key questions with this activity, but you might choose in your class to focus on one. You could spend an entire class module just talking about author, what it means to author something, or what it means to think about having an audience that you create something for. So recapping these 5 key questions. I touched on yesterday, and I thought I would spend some time on this today, from the National Association for Media Literacy Education in the United States. They have a core principles of media literacy education. So for those of you who are not familiar with NAMELY, which is the acronym for that, NAMELY, first of all, know that you can join, you could become a member of NAMELY, you can join NAMELY for free. So you could go on their website, which is namle.net, right, namle.net, and sign up for membership, and then you will get a monthly newsletter, and there are resources in that newsletter. There are events that are coming up that they'll let you know about, and they're global. The perspective of information is very global, so it won't be Armenia focused, but it will be broader than the United States. Okay? So I want to review the 6 core principles, because the purpose of the core principles is for educators, right? As opposed to the 5 key questions. The 5 key questions, I talk to students about the 5 key questions. I want them to understand those 5 questions. But the core principles of media literacy education are meant to help teachers craft their curriculum, their learning goals. So the first one is media literacy education requires active inquiry and critical thinking about the messages we receive and create. So active inquiry is sort of a fancy way of saying ask questions, right? Media literacy education is about asking questions and thinking critically about the questions and the answers. So that's number 1. Number 2, media literacy education expands the concept of literacy to include all forms of media. We talked about that, right? I mentioned that just a few minutes ago, that it's an expanded concept of literacy. 3, media literacy education builds and reinforces skills for learners of all ages, like print literacy. Those skills necessitate integrated, interactive, and repeated practice. So what's meant by number 3 is that media literacy isn't something you learn once and you're done, right? Sometimes I talk to folks and they'll say to me, Sherry, you must be so media literate, right? That I must know everything. But I always say, well, I work on that every day. There's new technology, there are new scams and tricks online. There are new movies and TV shows that come out that utilize different special effects. I consider myself a student of media literacy. I am always learning, always opening my eyes to it. It is a lifelong learning skill. So we want students, we want people to start thinking about media literacy at the youngest age possible, but I want you to be considering yourself as a media literate learner for all of your years. And that's something you can share with your students too, to help them understand that it's not like a math skill where you might learn addition, subtraction, multiplication, and then when you know it, you learn your times tables, and you know it, that's it for your entire life, right? I know today that 9 times 9 is 81, and I learned that when I was in 3rd grade or whatever grade I learned it in, and it remains the same. Not so with media literacy. Media literacy is a lifelong learning skill. Number 4, media literacy education develops informed, reflective, and engaged participants essential for a democratic society. So that touches on some of the goals and activities today that I'm going to talk to you about. Because in order for you to participate as a full citizen in your country, in the world, there are certain, you need to engage with news and information, you need to vote, you need to participate in your cultural community. That nowadays, that really means you are comfortable and able to communicate online. In the United States, to register to vote, you need to be able to get online. To access healthcare, you need to look for that information online. To get news, daily news, you're doing that online. So, and a lot of times in schools, information is conveyed online. So for you to participate as a full citizen means having these media skills. And that's why they're so important. Number 5, media literacy education recognizes that media are a part of culture and function as agents of socialization. That connects very directly to me to that 5th.
No voice.
Can you hear me okay?
No, yeah.
Okay. the number 5 really connects to the 5th key question. And that key question was about content and understanding that content has a point of view and value messages. That's why it is a part of culture and functions as an agent of socialization. It's one of the reasons that you think about the export of American media to the rest of the world, American movies, American TV shows. It's one of the reasons that there are concerns about that in other parts of the world, because we want the culture where you live and where as part of your community to be part of what people see in their media. And there's a worry that, right, that the content, if the content is too Americanized, will it be too much an agent of socialization, or will it just be helpful? So that balance there, right? Number 6, media literacy education affirms that people use their individual skills, beliefs, and experiences to construct their own meanings from media messages. And that statement connects to the 4th key question. It was about audience. Audience is about individual people. It recognizes that when I look at a television program, I probably am triggered by and maybe laugh at and enjoy different things than you might, different things than my daughter might, different things than a toddler or a preschooler might. I see the world through my lens, through my filter. My filter includes my gender and where I'm born and where I live and the people I'm friends with. That all is part of how I view, how I understand the media I consume. Whether that media is a video game or an advertisement or a television program, I see it through my eyes. And that's what we want to recognize. We're helping young people to understand that people interpret media through their own view, through their vision. And I'll tell you that one of the activities, this is separate from other things I'll talk about today, but there's many children, even very young children, understand that when they go online, they can, or when they take pictures, they can use filters to put different things on their faces, right? Give themselves little animal ears or put funny things on their nose, right? And that puts a filter on your picture, and that can actually help you talk about what it means to have a filter in the way you consume media. You may not be consuming media with your little bunny ears, but you are consuming media with the lens of how you see the world. And so those are those core principles of media literacy education. Alex, I see that there's a hand up. Did you have a question or comment?
I just want to give some technical tips for our participants because there are հարգելի մասնակիցներ, եթե դուք հայերեն թարգմանությունը դժվարանում եք լսել, որովհետև
I'm not hearing any translation or
just technical tips.
Tips for interpretation.
Original audio
It's the same what I was telling you. Mute original audio.
Անջատեք շերի ցայնը եւ լսեք միայն թարգմանությունը, բայց պիտի անպայման սեղմած լինեք հայերեն թարգմանությունը.
The original audio is muted. I'm not hearing the translation.
No, it's not for you. It's not for you. It's for the participants.
This is just technical tips for our participants because there are a lot of questions related to the interpretation.
Do you hear Alexander?
I'm sorry.
Saying that it's some technical tips for participants. So it now can continue.
I'm sorry. For a moment, I had muted the original audio, Alex, so I didn't know that you were speaking in English. So I'm sorry. I hope I didn't miss anything important.
No, it were just technical tips. We can now proceed.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to sharing my screen for a minute. Okay, so we're talking about showing you the core principles. I'm sorry, bear with me for one moment. I was still hearing Armenian there. All right, going back to share. And maybe I'll highlight something right now. You know the back and forth we're having right now in the webinar of making sure that the technology is right. That's just a part of dealing with media and dealing with technology, even in our classrooms. And even in my classrooms when I teach at the university, I have my college students all looking at me, waiting for class to begin. Sometimes I have technology problems. Sometimes the internet doesn't work, or I might have an activity planned and it just something happens with the technology. That's just a part. It doesn't happen all the time. I don't want you to worry about it, but it is part of being comfortable with using technology in a classroom and just recognizing that sometimes that will happen. I find most people are not bothered by it, but I also know teachers sometimes worry about what if this happens? What if the technology doesn't work? And the best thing I can say to you is try, because you'll see that the issues will be minor, and the more you do it, the more comfortable you will be with that. Okay, so these are the core principles of media literacy education through Namely. And the core principles, what we've done is taken the core principles and created the 5 key questions from it and lots of other materials based on this foundational view of what the core principles are. Something that is built on the core principles is this notion about asking questions. So I keep talking about asking questions, and I focus first on those 5 key questions because there's 5 of them. They're simple to talk about. They are simple to talk about with preschoolers, with people of all ages. They're easy to remember. But let's say you want to go deeper, or you want to think about it in a slightly different way. This is another way to think about it. If you look at, so there's 3 columns here, right? The first column in light blue, the sections are authors and audiences, then messages and meanings, then representations and reality. So the questions are clustered in those 3 areas. And then the questions talk, each grouping of questions is themed, and that's what's in the second column. So you can see under authors and audiences, the themes are authorship, purposes, economics, and responses. Already you can see there's a little overlap with the 5 key questions. And then they've taken those themes and actually created some questions around them. So if you wanted to do a lesson that just focused on authors and audiences, you could think about these questions and these themes just to talk about authors and audiences. So you're talking about who creates it and who watches, who creates and who listens, who plays, the author and the audience. That's a great concept to just talk about those 2 things. Messages and meaning. It's really just talking about the fact that media has messages and meaning, right? It talks about content, techniques, interpretations. The media is made by someone who has a point of view. And then the last section, representations in reality, is about context and credibility. So when I mentioned earlier, those filters or the information that can be highlighted or omitted around gender, race, socioeconomics, all sorts of cultural references. That's part of representations in reality. So same information I've already been talking about with the 5 key questions. I'm trying to give you other ways to think about it, ways that might resonate more for your classroom or a particular activity. My guess is, I shouldn't say guess, my sort of experience tells me that you are already doing things, likely already doing things in your class that connect to media literacy. So as I go through these questions, as we talk about the key questions, I want you to be thinking about the activities you're already doing. Like, let's say you show a video in your classroom already. That's maybe, could be a movie that you watch, or it could be a video that talks about the weather, helping them learn about the weather. You can watch the video in the same way you always have. But before you show it, you can say to them, we're about to watch a film about the weather. Why would someone make a film about the weather? And have a conversation about that. What would we hope to see in a film about the weather? And you can talk about that. Then you watch your phone for whatever reason you wanted to. And then when you finish, you can talk about that. What did we learn from that? Which is a question you might already ask. What do we think the author wanted us to learn from watching that? So you're using the language and the terminology of media literacy, and you might even say in that moment, right now, we are asking media literacy questions, so that you're helping your students understand that what they're learning are media literacy skills. So you don't need to cover all of this in an activity. You could talk about one question, right? One question. So you're taking things that are already happening probably in your classroom in some cases and connecting them to media literacy concepts. And you can do that with, let's say, it's a holiday coming up. And in your class, you're going to watch a movie, a fun movie, right? You can ask the same questions about movies that are just for entertainment. So always thinking about media literacy. Today I'm focusing the learning goals and the activities around two key areas. And yesterday I talked about three, so this is two of those three. The power of asking questions. I really want preschoolers, if this is a great goal in media literacy education, is for preschoolers to really understand the power of asking questions. And for us specifically, the power of asking questions about media. So you might already be helping them to learn the power of asking questions in their lives. You might even have little assignments where they have to go home and ask their parents about what they buy at the market or things, right, that they're being encouraged to shape questions. In this case, we just want those questions to be about media, right? So that's one real strong goal. And the second today I really want to focus on is how to determine if information is reliable. So there's lots of components of media literacy that you can focus on, but we know that misinformation and disinformation is a real problem in society now. And there's quite a bit of conversation about that in schools when it comes to particularly high school, right? Middle school, high school. But if we want people to build those skills, they're consuming information way before they get to high school. So we want them to be thinking about what it means to see reliable, trustworthy information from as soon as they can understand that concept. So even a conversation about why do you trust information? What does it mean to trust? What does it mean to trust? And then why do you trust information from your parents, from your teacher? And what does that mean? And then help them to make that connection to information they might get through something that is mediated through media. So focusing on those two today. So the first activity that I want to talk about, the activity itself is called What's in the Frame. But what's the learning goal? The learning goal is to understand how a screen image can be deceptive. So a screen image, any screen image, has a point of view of the author, right? So that touches on authorship and purpose of the author, and the intentions of the author. And so even if I don't have to be mean or even deceptive. I have the word deceptive up there. I don't have to be deceptive to be framing something in media. The author, no matter what you're making, the author is selecting what part of the image they want you to see and what part they don't want you to see. And when they do that, they frame the image. So from a terminology, we want students to understand the concept that certain things are in a frame and certain things are outside the frame. That's a very an important concept for preschoolers, and also one that is really aligned to their cognitive ability. It's a good foundational concept that helps build media literacy skills. So the idea of something being inside the frame and out. There's lots of ways that you can do that, lots of activities that don't require any technology, right? You can in class take construction paper and make a frame with like, just the outside frame of it and walk around class and put things in a frame and look at things outside the frame and help them understand physically in their hands like what's in the frame and how. Or you can look and do lots of ways of understanding that online. So in this case, I just took a picture of this bunny rabbit who's in a scene with the mushroom and the trees and the clouds and the skateboard and the butterfly, and showed that if I was the author and I just showed you the butterfly, how misleading that would be. That the butterfly is not actually the focus of the scene for the author. It's this full picture. That when you only see what's in the frame, you could be missing other information. So we're helping them to understand the concept that not only that an author can put things in a frame, but that when someone frames the information, they are omitting information outside. So as an audience member, I am led to see what's inside the frame, and I am stopped, I am restricted from seeing what's outside the frame, in and out, in and out. That's a very important concept. Here are other images that help to communicate that. So you can look at an image and really say, well, what do you see? Oh, I see a person standing at a kitchen table, looks like 3 people in a room, and looks like a kitchen environment, and they're talking to each other, looks like a family. Right? You can talk about what they see. But actually, it's a TV set, and there are cameras in the room, and there are multiple people. The cameras are very large. They are on pedestals. There's technology and a crew that is behind the scenes. So you're helping them to see what is there and what is not. See, what do you see here? Looks like a little hippopotamus or some sort of animal peeking its head out from behind. I don't know what that even is. Looks like from behind a door, from behind a wall, behind something. Very hard to tell. But what do you see now? Oh, now it looks like there's a person behind that door who's actually operating, is holding that hippopotamus, which is fake. It's not, right? It's just a puppet. And the scene that they're creating here is actually requiring a person to operate that puppet. What do you see here? It looks like something in water. Right, a little bowl. Looks like that's a floor. And you can talk about what that looks like to you. And then actually we can go back for a minute. If we really, it's hard, I don't know if it may be hard or easy for you to see this. It's that little hippopotamus character that's sort of submerged, and all we really see are sort of the eyes and ears and nose. If I were, I've put this together, I know what it is. If I didn't, I might not understand what that is. And then we pull back, and we see actually again, this is a person manipulating a toy for media to make a movie. So you can talk about how when they are looking at things, we go back a little bit. When they're looking at characters in a movie, you might even be able to look at a movie clip like this. That how do they make those characters? How do they make the animals talk? How do they do that? Well, that's a really because so many movies kids watch have stop motion, so not an animated picture, although you could talk about that too. In this case, it's like a puppet, right? That they move the puppet step by step. You can help them understand how they make that, and there's actually lots of great videos on YouTube that you can look at that are about how this technology is created, which helps young people to understand that there's an author that wrote a script that decided there should be an animal who could talk. But since animals can't really talk in real life, how do we create the content that will convey that to the audience? So you're giving them the language, the words, the terms to be able to talk about this. Okay. I want to encourage you in that if you don't want to pause, we can pause for a question or two if there are here, but because I'm going to talk about some other activities and I'm going to go through a lot of them. or not a lot of emotions. I have 3. But I want you to think about how you might do this in a classroom, how you might use it in your classroom. Here's a second idea. So the learning goal is to gain skills in determining the reliability of author or source. So you might hear that at first, that learning goal, and think preschoolers are too young to do that, but they really aren't, right? I've written the learning goal in a way that an adult would understand. But the activity itself is very preschooler friendly. And the activity is a scavenger hunt. And the scavenger hunt is, how do you know that? Right? It's asking the question, how do you know that? I encourage my own friends to ask that question all the time. How do you know that? We take in information all the time, and we just assume that it's right, that it's believable. But how do you know that? Right? So here's an idea for an activity. So first, find the first thing on the center of the screen says, find a timely news story of interest to kids in the media. Right? So look for something that is happening timely, meaning it's something that's current. Like that's current news. So here are 3 examples. You could be looking at a weather channel. So something super easy to access. There's always, there is something called the weather channel, but you might have other sources you like to use. Maybe the weather channel says it will rain this weekend. How do you know? How do they know that it will rain this weekend? And how do we know that we should believe the weather channel? So it's not, you're not necessarily doing like a chemistry activity about how weather is determined. You're talking about why the weather channel is a believable source, right? That's the question. So you might, well, actually I'll save this for the next screen. So that's one possible question. I'm just giving you 3 timely news stories, so you can see how to take things in the news that are of interest to kids. So one is about the weather. Maybe Disney put out a press release that said Disney will release Frozen 3 next month. And that could just be an announcement that comes up, a screen announcement on Disney Plus streaming. Or maybe your school has a newsletter, right? A piece of paper. So now that's not digital media, but it is media. Many children are sick after eating in the school cafeteria. Maybe that's the headline in a school newsletter. Now, what do we do with that information? So you're going to read the information, then ask, how do you know that? And discuss how to find other sources that support that article or don't. And you can talk about that and explain. This is called lateral reading. So lateral reading is a concept that is used in media literacy classrooms all over the world. And it's the idea, technically, lateral reading is when you're on a website and you are looking at a story and you want to determine whether you should believe what's on that website. So you open another tab on your browser. And so let's say as an adult, let's say I'm on Disney Plus and I see the story, the announcement, Disney will release Frozen 3 next month. In lateral reading, I would open another tab and I would use a search in Google or another search engine. Is there another installment of the movie Frozen coming out soon? So I asked the question, and the browser might show me other sources that have talked about that issue, and I could pick 1 or 2 of those sources and go to that, open another tab, look and see, did they talk about the release of Frozen 3? Did they say it's coming out next month? So you're looking at multiple sources to see if that information is backed up. And you can talk about, well, why would that source be a reputable source for the news? So if I opened up Disney Plus streaming and I saw an announcement that said Disney will release Frozen 3 next month, I can talk to my students about the fact that Disney is the company that puts out Frozen, and so they're a very reputable source, right? They are the source that actually created Frozen. They're the ones who put it in the movie theaters. They would know the information. That's different than if they went on a website for Sherry And Sherrri said, Frozen 3 is coming out next month. So in that case, let's say you went on Sherri's website, and Sherri's website said, Frozen 3 is coming out next month. We would lateral read, open another tab, search, is Frozen 3 coming out next month, and look and see the other sources that come up. Maybe one is Disney. And then we would look on the Disney site and say, well, Disney would be a reputable source because they're the ones that created it. In the third example, many children sick after eating in the school cafeteria. So I'm using that one specifically because it's not a digital example. So in that case, you might say, well, how would the reporter who wrote for the school newsletter, how would they know? Why should I trust them that people got sick in the cafeteria? And so you might talk about, like, did they interview somebody in the cafeteria? Did they talk to the parents of children who got sick? How do they know that information? So you are modeling what it means to ask good questions, what it means to be a critical thinker about the content, and what it means to check your sources. But you're doing it in a fun way. You're doing it as if it's like, let's go on a scavenger hunt to find information, to find the right source, and then ask those questions of the content. Right, that's the second example for learning. The third example I have is the learning goal is to develop skills in critical inquiry by asking questions. And the activity is called I am a reporter. So in this example, this activity, you're going to explain to the class that, talk about what the role of a news reporter is. And you can ask them, what do reporters do? So explain that the role of a news reporter is to share information with the community about a specific event or issue. Right? That's what reporters do. So in your activity, there are 4 steps. Gather, right? Number 2 says create. 3 is action, 4 is discuss. So number 1, you're going to put students in groups of 3. Now I'm creating this activity. Let me say this first. This activity assumes that you can take your class of students and put them in groups. You may feel that that's too much to do in your class. If so, I would select just 3 students, have them come to the front of the room, do this activity with just those 3 students while everyone else is watching and talking about it with you. And then you could do it again with 3 different students and again with 3 different students. So there's lots of ways to make this work in your space. So number 1 is gather, place students in groups of 3, where 1 student is the reporter, 1 student is pretending to be a grocery store owner, and 1 student is pretending to be a camera person. Right? I'm going to take a sip for 1 moment. Okay, sorry. So step 2 is create. So remember, we're pretending to be reporters, right, and to do a news story here. You may not have the actual technology in your room. That's okay. A reporter creates a paper microphone. Grocery store owner creates a costume. Camera person creates a paper lens. If you have something in your room, if you have, you could create even something out of paper, something that looks like a smartphone that has the camera on the side, or they could draw a picture of the camera and they can just hold it and pretend. For a microphone, you could just take a long piece of paper and scroll it up, tape it, and put a little something round, a little ball at the top to make it look like a microphone. So you're helping them to feel like the part, but it doesn't have to be the actual thing. So create, which is part of media literacy skills, right? Access, analyze, evaluate, create. Number 3 is action. So we want the reporter to ask questions to the grocery store owner while the camera person looks through their lens. Now, in your class, you could come up with what the scene is. So you might actually say to the class, like, let's talk about what happens at a grocery store. And you could change the environment. I'm saying grocery store because most people have been in some sort of grocery store. Okay? So people buy fruit. People come in and buy fruit, and then they have to pay for it. They stand in a line to pay for it. And you talk about what happens in the grocery store. So let's say, imagine a new delivery of fruit came in that day. So you're the grocery store owner, and you're going to be interviewed about the new fruit delivery that happened today. So the reporter is going to ask questions about the fruit delivery. The grocery store owner is going to talk about their new fruit delivery, and the camera person is going to take pictures of that fruit delivery. So you can create that scenario, which would be a lot of fun, right? Kids would love to do this. But the key here is you're going to discuss what you did by using the 5 key questions. So you do that scenario, and then you can say to the class, we're learning about media literacy. Let's talk about our 5 key questions. Who is the author in this? So it is less important that the answer is right, and more important that they're asking a question. Especially in this activity, the skill that you're developing is the skill of critical inquiry, active critical inquiry, asking questions. And that it is important to ask questions of the media that we consume. That's the skill of a media literate person. So using those critical questions, who was the author? What was their purpose? What creative techniques did they use to attract our attention? How might different people understand this message differently about audience? What points of view are there? So what did they choose to talk about? What costume did the person use? All of those are media literacy questions, right? Asking that about. So that's the learning goal and activity today. So I'm getting in another minute or less, I'm going to open up the floor to questions. And so I want you to think about the things that I just went over. I want you to have a strong understanding of the foundational concepts of media literacy. And you feel you understand what media literacy is and what the 5 key questions represent and those core principles for media literacy education. Bullet 2, do you feel you've built some expertise? Not that you're an expert, but developing expertise in activities and curriculum. So are those ideas that I just talked about, those 3 ideas, one about framing, one about being a reporter, and what was my last one? Oh, then the scavenger hunt. How do you know that? So are those useful activities for you? And then do you feel more confident about that? What would it take for you to feel more confident about that? So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute there and open up the floor. I would love to hear specific questions, concerns. Could be about a specific aspect of the activity or about something that was on the PowerPoint. I can go back to a slide, but I'm really curious to hear, and it might not be a question, it might even be just a comment of something that you think would work great in your classroom, or something that you tried and didn't work in your classroom too. So I see we've got a couple hands up. I'm going to let Alex navigate the hands that are up and turn it to you so we can have questions.
Արդյոք հարցեր, դիտարկումներ ունենք, աստղիկ, հասմիկ, ների, տեսնում եմ, որ ձեր ձեռքերը բարձրացված են, եթե հարց ունեք կամ որևէ դիտարկում, ճիշտ բանը խոսելը։ Քանի դեռ մեր մասնակիցները տեխնիկական կամ խնդիրներ ունեն կամ իրենց հարցերը կգրեն չաթում, որոնք ես ավելի ուշ կբարձրացնեմ, նման մի հարց ունենք Շերրի, ինչպես կհամեմատեիք մանկության տարիքում մեդիագրագիտությանը ծանոթացած երեխային այդ նույն փորձառությունը չունեցող երեխայի հետ 10-15 տարի հետո։
Alex, can I stop you for a minute? I'm not hearing translation yet. I think she's on mute. I'm not sure how to, I put something in chat, so let her know.
Սուսաննա ջան, ձեր ցայնն անջատված է։
I'm so sorry about that.
Okay, now we're back. Okay.
Ես կրկնեմ հարցը։ Նման մի abstract է, բայց նաև հետաքրքիր հարց ունեմ։
I will listen to question, then I will process it and ask you. Okay.
Ինչպես կհամեմատեիք վաղ մանկության տարիքում մեդիագրագիտությանը ծանոթացած երեխային այդ նույն փորձառություն ունեցող երեխայի հետ 10-15 տարի հետո։
Okay. The question is the following, very abstract question. How would you compare two children, one of which received media literacy education, preschool education, with another kid who didn't receive such an education? Both are like 10 or 15 years later. So now they're teenagers. One of them received this preschool media literacy and one didn't receive it. How would you compare those two persons?
That's such an interesting question. So I understand the question to be, how would you compare a child who is a teenager, one who has had media literacy education, and one who has not? So what I want a person, an adult person, to have is the skill to understand media influence and the ability to analyze media information in a fluid way, in a natural, organic way in their lives. That it becomes just the way, just the way they watch TV. It's just what they do. When I am looking at television, as me myself, I just, without even thinking about it, I answer questions. I turn to my husband and I make comments about a news story and what they reported on and what they didn't report on. Or I think about the author and how they wrote this amazing film. I just naturally think about that. That's part of how I consume media. That's what I want people to be able to do. So for that to happen, they need to start developing the skill when they're young, so that as they grow up, it's just a natural part of how they consume media. If we don't do that, right, the difference is that teenager who has had media literacy skills, skill building as a preschooler and through their elementary years, then when they get to be a teenager and they're on social media all the time, and they are playing video games for many hours a day, and they are, who knows what will happen, next sort of things will happen. They will be asking questions and thinking about them with intelligence, with a skill that's already been developed, right? As opposed to a child who has not had any media literacy skills, and now I'm having a conversation with an adult, with a teen, where I'm saying, look, actually, I'll give you an example. My students in university are 18 years old to 24 years old, around there. They tell me all the time, one, they have never had media literacy training in their prior years. Two, they'll say, I completely understand that media influences me. I don't know what to do about it. I completely understand that social media doesn't make me feel good all the time, but I can't stop. They understand the influence. They don't know what to do about it. A media literate person would have more skills that they've developed that are coping, because they've learned to recognize the methods that media uses to manipulate. And so I'm more likely, Sherry, more likely when I am, believe me, I'm on email, I'm online, I'm on TikTok, I'm doing what everybody's doing too. But I think I'm a little more aware of saying, I've been doing that for a long time today. I've been seeing lots of messages about the war in Ukraine. It's upsetting me. I think I need to watch something else. Or I've been seeing all this information about the war in Ukraine, And I'm not sure I trust my source from this. I need to find other sources. So I'm consuming media mindfully. I need adult people to do that. And in order for you to do that, you need to
Շնորհակալություն Շերրի, շատ մանկավարժներին, ինչպիսին պետք է լինի նախակրթական հաստատությունների, մանկապարտեզների, այն մանկավարժը, որը երեխաների հետ պետք է խոսի մեդիագրագիտության մասին, այսինքն որոնք են այն հիմնական պայմանական 3 կարևոր հատկանիշները, որը պետք է ունենա այդ մանկավարժը։
The question is the following. Which are, in your opinions, the three specifics of a pedagogue, of a teacher who is going to hold some media literacy classes in preschool educational systems? So which are the capacities, main 3 characteristics is the word, of a teacher who is going to organize and to have these media literacy classes? 3 main characteristics.
I think the main skill that a teacher needs to be able to engage their class in media literacy is courage. That is the main skill. You all consume media, right? You're consuming media all the time. You know a lot about it. And you are thoughtful preschool teachers. You're taking time out of your day to come to a webinar. You need to just try it. You need to just pick one of the activities or one of the key questions and just decide courageously that you are going to walk into your classroom and say to your students, we're going to talk about media today. Sometimes that's the biggest thing. So I think courage is number 1. Number 2 would be I think courage is the biggest one. You know, self-awareness is another good one, because as I say, you are using media all the time. So the more you think about developing your own media literacy skills, the easier it will be to think about what the preschooler needs. And I know there's a big difference between your brain and a preschooler's brain, but your ability to think about your own use, how do you consume media? Are you asking the questions of media? Are you thinking about media? That will be helpful in figuring out how to convey it to students, right? You already have the skill of understanding the preschool brain. Right? That's why you're preschool teachers. You've learned about a preschooler's brain. You need to take the information that you're going, the resources that are about media literacy, and put it in a language that preschoolers will understand. So there's some confidence in you, right? Have confidence that you have skills around preschoolers. And if you're a newer preschool teacher, if you feel like, actually, I don't feel I know a lot about preschoolers, then that's something you can learn about the cognitive abilities of preschoolers separate from media. You want to learn about what does the preschooler understand? How do they understand things? How do I craft a simple message that a preschooler understands? And then you can make that connection. Courage first.
Շնորհակալություն Շերրի, եւ այստեղ շատ լավ դիտարկում կա, որ առաջին հերթին մանկավարժը պետք է գրի այն գիրառի
and try to apply that knowledge himself or herself, and after that give this knowledge to children. And we are now talking about the classrooms. What do you think? Is it more a question of resources or desire for a teacher to be able to have a comfortable environment in the classroom for media literacy? Is it an issue of will, desire, or resources?
Well, you'll notice that in my comments I just gave you about what's important, what's necessary, and what you should have, I never once mentioned technology, computers, devices. That is not necessary. Don't let that be your excuse. You do not need technology in the room to have a media literacy conversation. I actually do, and I've done for the Public Journalism Club, many webinars where we've talked about bringing media literacy into your room with zero technology. That you can, I mean, that's why when I talked about the recorder activity, I talked about creating microphones and cameras with paper. Kids love to play, they love to invent, they love to pretend. You don't need the actual technology there. They have opportunities. If you've got it, great. But if you don't, I would put that low on the list. Right? The most important thing is your understanding of media literacy, your willingness to try to do it, and it really it's those characteristics first. You know, it may seem, you know, maybe that's surprising to you, but it's that children have so much interaction with media already, they will understand what you mean, right? You know, a 4-year-old understands what a microphone is. That's true nowadays. So you can do lots of pretend activities. You don't need technology.
Շնորհակալություն, Անայդ ջան, դուք հարց ունեք, Անայդ Ստեփանյանը ձեռք է բարձրացրել։
Լսում եք։ Շատ վատ աղմուկ է։ Շատ վատ, ինչ որ կողքից ձայներ են գալիս, հստակ չեմ որ լավ։ Լավ է, մա։ Փորձենք։ Լսում եք։
Thank
you for your seminar, Mr. Khulvер, Ms. Khulver. The question is in English. It's the second seminar that I'm participating in. I'm working as a director in Kapon Kindergarten. So I have a question, such a question. You know that being in the kindergarten, our children are playing all the time, so our time is starting, working time is starting 8 o'clock up to 6 o'clock, and all the time they are working with each other, speaking, they're going to an excursion, they're doing some so interesting and different things. So there are no smartphones, there are no anything that is will disturb their day and so on. So I think that we have to start work with parents about these questions, because I think that smartphones are reachable only for our parents, and they're always giving to smartphones to children, and if they are busy, so it is they are often giving to children, and they are doing their work. So how to start, how to show the exact way to parent in order to I want to find the word, how to find the exactly way, and to show the way to be more very smartphones, and how much we can spend with smartphones so with children. That's the question.
Անայջան, քանի որ Շերրին մի փոքր լավ չի լսում, հենց նոր գրեց ինքը, ես կխնդրեմ դուք հայերեն հարցը տվեք, Սուսանան կթարգմանի, Սուսանային ավելի լավ կլսի Շերրին։
Բայց իրականում հայերենը վատ է լսվում, ես անգլերենը չի լսում, Սուսանան կարող է հայերենը չլսի, Սուսանան չի խոստանում, որ կլսի հայերեն, բայց եկեք փորձենք։
Ես հայերեն ասեմ, մենք ամբողջ օր ենք ծածկում երեխաների հետ եւ իհարկե նրանց դեպքում ոչ մի պատմություն չկա, եւ նրանք ամբողջ օրը զբաղված են հետաքրքիր խաղերով, նրանք ոսնում են, նրանք ամբողջ օր զբաղված սմարթֆոնների, նրանք մանկապարտեզ են այցելում եւ հետաքրքիր ժամանակ են անցկացնում։ Հիմա մեր դոկտը ավելի շատերի ծնողների հետ է եւ մենք պետք է ծնողներին դրսից ուղղություն ցույց եւ ճանապարհ ցույց տանք, ինչպես աշխատել, ինչ անել, որպեսզի երեխան եթե հանկարծ սմարթֆոն են գնում ձեռքը, ապա այդ սմարթֆոնից ցույցի եւ օգտի այն խաղերից, օգտի այն լուրերից, որը վերջ կպա, ինչպես օգտի սմարթֆոն եւ ինչքան ժամանակ կարող է ծնողը տրամադրել երեխային սմարթֆոն եւ ինչպես անել, որ ավելի ապահովի երեխան։
Անայջան, ես ճիշտ հասկացա, որ ձեր հարցը մոտավորապես հետևյալում է կայանում, որ երեխաները մանկապարտեզում
ծնողին օրինակ ծնողին կանչել են ժողովի, ասում են հայրերի ծնողից եք ձեր երեխան կարող է հեռախոսը վերցնել եւ դա աղետի կբերի, օրինակ կարող է մի ծնող կասել, մի կոճակ ստեղծել եւ դուք կվեճրեք ձեր գումարներից, կոճակը կստեղծի եւ կհայտնի այնպեսի գիտեմ բացառիկ կադրեր, որ կարող է հոգեբանական ինչ-որ վատ ազդեցություն թողնել երեխայի համար։ Հիմա ինչ անենք հայրերի ծնողից, ինչպես դες ողջունենք, ինչ ապացույց որպեսզի ձեր երեխան ճիշտ մեդիագրագիտություն սկսի լինել։ Խոսում ենք այո իհարկե շատ լավ բաներ են ասում, բայց այն ճանապարհը որ պետք է որտեղ հիմա շատ է տեղեկատվությունը շատ է, մենք անընդհատ ինտերնետում ենք, մենք հասանելի ենք սմարթֆոնել բոլորի ձեռքին կա եւ ակամայի ծնողը անընդհատ հեռախոսի մեջ է եւ այլն երեխան նպեցնում եւ ինքնից է գնում։ Օրինակ ինչպես անենք, որտեղ ենք։
Շատ շնորհակալություն Անայջան։ Սուսաննա ջան, կարող եք ավելի կարճ բացեք Շերրին փոխանցել հարցի բնությունը։
Okay, if my understanding is right, the voice was terrible actually. So, Sheri, the question was that children of preschool age are always using smartphones. So smartphones are always in their hands, they are playing different games, and how to guide the parents, more here to parents, what tips to give them, how to make this use of mobile phones more secure, because by pushing a single button, children can do a lot of harm, like lose money and a lot of things. So how to guide children, how to guide parents, and what tips to you, and actually what to say, how to streamline, how to guideline this correct use of cell phone by preschool children. Maybe we should restrict the time children use smartphone, or have some special guidelines on that, if I'm not mistaken.
So I'm going to answer the question, and hopefully this will be what you were asking about. The question about sort of the access that children have to inappropriate content online and how parents is a really important one. It is very valuable, and I mentioned this yesterday also, it's very valuable to have media literacy, webinars, discussions, events with parents at school. My experience is often when I talk to parents, they just have not thought it through. They know media is everywhere, and they just sort of throw their hands up like, oh, well, what are we going to do? It's but if you actually talk about the 5 key questions, like really do a media literacy lesson and talk about the 5 key questions and the value of building critical analytical skills in young people, you can help them see the value of, and not just the value, the actions, the behaviors that they can do at home. Sometimes, I mentioned yesterday, parents often have terrible media literacy skills. And sometimes it's not until they think about it for their children that they change their own behavior. So just having a workshop with parents where an evening meeting where you talk to parents about media and the influence of media on their children's lives and how their own behavior can be helpful. That can open the door to the discussion. As far as children accessing inappropriate content, so in that workshop, we can talk about the filters and the apps that you can put on a phone or on your television to restrict access. The one thing that I talk about with parents a lot is if your child really wants to see something, it's very hard to stop them. We live in an environment where if they're not looking at it in your home, they'll look at it in their friend's home, or they'll see it, with a friend who has their own mobile device to use. I remember when my daughter was like 6 or something, age 6, she knew that we had very strict rules at home about what she could access and what she could not. And she went to a friend's house, a really nice, good family, came home and said to me, "Oh, I learned about a new app today. We downloaded it, this new app." And I said, "How did you do that?" And she said, "Oh, they have Wi-Fi at Danielle's house." And she downloaded it to her phone, to this and it wasn't a phone that had internet access, but the family had Wi-Fi. So they downloaded it. So here I'm this media literacy educator, and my daughter went off to a home and downloaded the wrong thing. You have to be mindful at every step. So you're not going to be perfect, but we need parents thinking about what they can do. There are many ways to put little I would call it a firewall. I don't know if you're familiar with the term firewall, but there are ways to bracket that information. There are also, websites that are made for kids with kids content. So rather than just saying to a child, "You can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this," instead say, "Go to this site." So rather than saying, "Don't go to YouTube," we can say, "Hey, look at this. There's YouTube Kids. There's a whole site for kids called YouTube Kids." There are also there are many sites being developed that are specifically made to have to be engaging content for children. So we want to make sure that kids are thinking mindfully and parents are thinking mindfully about what are the best options, and we give them those options. So my advice would really be engage in a conversation with parents.
Շնորհակալություն Շերրի, ցավոք Հայաստանում YouTube
Unfortunately, we don't. Sherrri, thank you. Unfortunately, we don't have YouTube Kids access in our region, so there are some restrictions. It's not available.
There probably, I'm sure there are sites though that are that are age appropriate for children.
Wait.
And send those to recommendations to folks. But truthfully, that's big business nowadays, right? There are lots of companies that are developing that because they know kids are online. So they definitely have options. If you want to, as the adult, you want to find those options and show them to children, as opposed to saying, "Don't do anything," because kids won't do that. They don't want
to listen.
Questions?
Ճիշտ ասած իմ հարցը այսպես տեխնիկական է ավելի շատ, ես ամենաթ ինձ մոտ ձայնի խնդիր է առաջանում, կտրտվում է, ես ամբողջական միտքը լավ չեմ բանանում, բայց քանի որ երեխաներից մի ժամանակ միացրեցիք, այսպեսի մի բան հարցնեմ։ Օրինակ մեր Հայաստանում շան թերթակայությունը ինչ որ մանկական ալիք բայց երբ որ միացնում ենք երեխաները դա նայելու ավելի ոգևորված նայելու փոխարեն իրենք ձգտում են ավելի շատ որ ուրիշ երեխաներ, ասենք իրենց առօրյան են ներկայացնում, բայց էլի թեկուզ YouTube-ով կամ ինչ-որ ուրիշ կայքով իրենք անընդհատ ձգտում են շարժումը, բայց ոչ ֆիլմերի կամ ավելի հետաքրքիր նյութերի, իրենց հետաքրքրում է ուրիշ կյանք այսպես ասած։ Այդ դեպքում կա ինչ կարելի է անել, որպեսզի երեխան ավելի շահագրգիռ լինի, դաստիարակչական կամ շրջական ինչ-որ նյութ նայի։
Մարինե ջան, ես ճիշտ եմ հասկանում, որ օրինակի նկատի ունեք այլ երեխաների բլոգներ,
Okay, Alexander is giving a correct clarification of the question.
Օրինակ ես պահին ռուսական բանը հիշեցի, Նիկիտա, չգիտեմ ինչա, կոնկրետ ես ծնող եմ, երեխաների նախադպրոցական տարիքին է, անընդհատ ես ինչքան փորձում եմ դա փակել կամ ինչ-որ ձևով արգելք դնել, որ չնայեն, կայքերը փակել, իրենք անընդհատ ձգտում են, թեկուզ այն մաշամեջրետ այդքան հաճույքով չեն նայում, ինչքան իրենց առօրյան։
So the question is the following, said now we have different channels for kids where there are different children, cartoons, movies, etc. But children are not seem to be that interested in such cartoons and such movies. They're more interested to watch different programs, channels, or maybe with a participation of other kids, maybe even blogs which are created by other kids. So it's it seems like they're interested in the life of others. The lady wants, for example, her child to watch very learning, interesting, knowledgeable movies or cartoons. How to make children to be more interested in such cartoons or more teaching, learning content rather than this stupid blogs or TV programs.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, this is a great question because you're right. Children love to watch content on YouTube or other sources where it's other kids, like real kids doing real things, the unboxing videos and things like that, right? So the first thing I would say is why do we need to stop them from watching that? If that's what they like and that's what they want to watch, and there's nothing inappropriate about it, they may not want to watch the things that we watched when we were kids. That's what happens, right? We have children they grow up in different environments. We didn't have that option. I didn't have that option when I was growing up. So one thing is where we have to think ourselves, like, why don't I want a child to see this? Then I would encourage a media literacy conversation about that content with the child, even if I'm a parent. So let's say I am a parent and I want, my child says, I want to be on the computer. And I say, okay, what do you want to watch? And they say, I want to be on YouTube or whatever it is that it might be for you. And I'm nervous about that. I mean, well, show me what you want to watch. Let's go on together and see what we can find. And we go on together. And maybe they say, well, my friend told me that I should watch this. Right? So we say, okay, well, let's look at it together. So we bring it up, and maybe it's a video with a boy or a girl just talking about their life. So you might say to your child, why do you want to watch this? Why do you think, why is this child on? Do you think that they made this, could they do this by themselves? Do you think that their parents, why would their parents want them to do it? Why would their parents be okay with it? At some point in that conversation, money should be talked about, right? That sometimes people show their lives on media because they make money from it. And so you're basically engaging in a conversation. You're not making a judgment. You're not saying to your child, this is bad, don't watch it. You're saying to your child, what do we understand about this? Who made it? Why might they have made it? How does it make us feel to watch this? Do we feel better watching it? Is it upsetting us watching it? Should we think about what they're showing us? Why are they showing us all these toys that they play with? Why would I care? I don't have those toys. So you're engaging in a conversation that asks questions about the content. I think that children are naturally inquisitive about other kids. They are going to want to watch content of other kids. I think I would have loved to see that as a kid. I didn't have any way to see Armenian children when I was growing up in the United States, but if I'd been able to, I might have thought that that was pretty cool. So rather than, I think I would try to meet children where they are. What do they like? And then can you ask them questions about it and encourage them to ask questions about the content? And if you want them to watch more educational content, then the conversation is more like the one you have at the library, right? When children say, I don't like to read, you say to them, what are you interested in? Let's find a book about that. Same thing. When we want children to watch educational media content, we should say, well, what are you interested in? Let's find a TV show about that. And so maybe they're interested in cooking. Let's find a TV show about how to bake a cake. So encourage them to find content that's educational around the content that is of their interest, and then they'll be interested in educational content. I know we're at our time. I don't know if we can take one more question or whether we should, whether we need to stop there, but I'll bring up my contact information also so that you've got
Excel կոնտակտային տվյալը շերի, եթե որևէ հարց ունենաք, մենք ևս վերջին հարցի հնարավորություն ունենք, Մարինե Քյուրքչյան կամ Լույսա Չաբաղյան կամ Վարդուհի ևս մեկ հարց տալու, որ մենք հավարտենք.
Նորից կասեք, չհասկացա ես, կտրտվում եմ.
Մարինե ջան, խոսքը շերի պատասխանի մասին է, թե այն ինչը, որ ես քիչ առաջ ասացի.
Այսինքն շերի պատասխանն է, ես հասկացա, որ պետք է քննարկում կազմակերպել, այսպես ասած, հասկանալու համար, թե ինչ է ուզում երեխան ընդառաջի.
Հենց վեբինարի օրինակով այն 5 հիմնական հարցերը, ով է հեղինակը, որն է նպատակը, ինչու է նայում, ինչն է հետաքրքրում, ինչ է տվել իրեն, զրույց ունենալ բովանդակության շուրջ, որը կօգնի երկրի ավելի լավ հասկանալ, թե Վեբինարի ավարտից հետո վաղը Facebook-յան էջում կտեղադրվի այս նույն վեբինարների հայերեն ձայնագրությունը, տեխնիկական խնդիրների պատճառով դժվարացել եք լսել հայերենը կամ հասարակ լսել, ապա այդ դեպքում դուք կարող եք լսել ձայնագրությունը, անպայման նաև էլեկտրոնային փոստի միջոցով ուղարկենք մեր մասնակիցներին. Շնորհակալություն Շերի.
Thank you Sherry for sharing with your experience within these 2 days. I think that it was very important and very interesting for all our participants and also for those who know you for quite a long time and they met you before, heard you before, and I'm sure that this will be very applicable experience. So if our participants would like to share their insights, also want to share our gratitude. It's not the first time that we're participating in the webinar. We heard about the Şerrի Քուլվեր. As soon as we heard about the seminar, we decided to participate. It was very useful, and for the first time, I remember we had to move the film. How can we show a movie? And we organized that in our kindergarten, actually. It was very interesting. Thank you for that insight. Thank you so much for sharing your opinion, our opinions, our impressions, where maybe some back.
Marina?
Ես նորից հետևեմ կարծիքը շատ
Marina is saying that it's the first time that she's participating in this webinar. Now I want to share my opinion as a parent. It was very interesting and full of different recommendations. Thank you so much for that. Sherrri will try if later in the future we organize webinars like that. I'll do my best to participate and to be able to apply the knowledge, apply to share this knowledge with my children and other children, and so our society is able to understand what is media literacy, to apply credit.
Շատ լավ ընկերներ, մասնակիցներ,
dear friends, dear participants,
կարծում եմ այսքան մենք կարող ենք
I think this is all for today.
Իրականացնենք մեր սահմանաչափը հույս ունեմ եւ
moreover, I'm sure that we'll be able to continue our cooperation with Şerrri. Why not? We can host, we are going to host her in Armenia. We'll be happy to, and want to remind you that our series of webinar will be. We'll continue our series. This time our legal experts will talk to the pedagogues about media literacy, media security. All of you will receive invitation to participate in Thank you once again and good luck. Bye.
Everyone, thank you.